Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the 6:30 session of a special meeting of the Acton Agua Dulce Unified School District Board of Trustees on this Thursday, November 19th, 2020. The focus of this meeting will be charter business and a fiscal impact study session. That is why we're here this evening on this not regularly scheduled meeting. We've got some important business to discuss, and our Superintendent Larry King will be leading that discussion. So I'll call this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. Can we do a roll call, please, board members? So we're all here. We have 5 board members ready to do the work this evening. Larry, is there anything that you want to adjust on the agenda before I present it to the board?
Yeah, I'd like to recommend that we swap items 4A and 4B. I think it's more important to do the business charter piece first and then entertain the contract for Azuka.
Wonderful. That said, do I have a motion from the board to accept the agenda as presented by the superintendent? The agenda has been accepted as presented. I will do the civility statement. When conducting the district's business, we will strive to communicate clearly and concisely with respect for the time of others, listen objectively, carefully considering the opinions of others, understand the counterproductive effects of disruptive, demeaning, and intimidating behaviors, understand and respect the district's policies and procedures, and maintain a respect for the rich history of the district and the efforts of others who have served in the past. And we'll begin discussion on item which is now 4A, charter business fiscal impact study session. Mr. King, would you introduce this topic and take it away? This is not an action item. This is a discussion and study session. Yeah, before we switch the superintendent out to his whiteboards over there. Board members, jot down your questions, please. We'll be running through this as we normally do. We'll start off with a discussion, starting with past President Fox first and move up as we go. All right, here are my comments. Spreadsheets are pretty easy to operate, especially when you know what the end number has to be. The first thing I want to say is I want to talk a little bit about the board's role in this. I want to remind everyone that the board is only as good as the information that they are informed with and the decisions that they make. I think you see a lot of new faces on our board that do not go back to the time period when this all started. And I'm going to summarize the board role here by saying that when you have a mono presidency, like say I'm the president for the next 3 or 4 years, what the public doesn't understand typically is the board president controls the agenda review. And that becomes very easy to become very comfortable, and a superintendent who is looking at life through the lens of an employee, sometimes one board member might be preferable in that light than another. So I am proud that this board has followed my lead in asking that the presidency rotates every year, and I will expect that will happen again, and that way it's a safeguard against mono presidencies and mono agendas is kind of what I'm getting at there. I don't think it takes a rocket science to figure out that if your budget is subsidized by 30%, it's pretty easy to get by, and it creates a false economy, and with false economies come loss of things like ambition and things like that. So it suddenly turns into, if you're getting a cut of the kids' money in San Bernardino that you don't know, it becomes pretty easy not to worry about how many kids are in your class because you're being subsidized at a tune of 30%. Something that's not being factored in here is a couple of things. A couple of years ago, when I first started, I used to make these funny movies about how people were wasting money dumping it into rooms like this. And now what you see is the board is not spending anything. You saw a tennis court, you saw a basketball court, you saw projects like that laying out there, and we knew back then that this day would come, and decided we will put that money out there. I'm going to tell you a story about what would have happened had somebody spent that money here in a second. But at the end of it, there's something called disengorgement. And what that means is there's a disengorgement hearing going on right now, and I can't discuss the details of it because it hasn't been finalized. But I would challenge the public to say, if I told you that I was going to raise your property taxes by 2% to make sure that your road was paved, and you agreed to that and voted to that, and your road never got paved, but you found out that the road over down the road where somebody that's politically connected got paid, I think you'd be a little upset with that. And that's kind of what's happened here. So what the district attorney is saying is, not only should you not have taken that money, but we want it back. Larry, is that accurate?
That is accurate, yes.
So this budget that we're sitting on, some of it, based on the negotiations that we're going to have to go through, again, that I can't talk about, the agreement may be that in addition to that you will not do this anymore. That will be an end product of this negotiation with the district attorney. But they can take portions of our reserve back, and I think that when Larry is talking about rat holing some of this money for whatever he called it, we're putting $2 million over here and $2 million over there. That's what the expectation that they're going to take that money back. If you get the DA coming in and saying, I want all of it back, you could literally find someone looking for $20 million or everything that you saw in that one chart. I don't expect that to happen. Now, had this board not put the money away and went ahead and spent the money on tennis courts and basketball courts and things like that, here's what would have happened. The DeHesa superintendent in this case, which is a mosaic of Valiant case, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, is under criminal indictment. And why is she under criminal indictment? Well, because she spent some of this money on things like brand new school buses. I don't know that brand new school buses are a bad thing, but they also spent it to give full ride health benefits to all the employees of the district. Well, guess what? When one employee district gets full ride health benefits, then all of a sudden, through Me Too clauses, the superintendent gets full ride benefits. And so what happened is this turned into misappropriation of funds. Now, I know a little bit about the law, enough to make me dangerous, but at the end of the day, you have, and this is unheard of, you have the same judge handling the criminal side of the case as you do handling the civil side of the case. So after you have a grand jury, and at that grand jury thing that Larry's talking about, he could not even share what was happening there, the nature of the questions, the nature of the intent of what the DA was doing with his own board. He was under gag order. But you don't have to be blind to see that was coming. You could have looked at the auditor's report. The state auditor is investigating you for what was the lead into a criminal thing. So Larry finds himself in a position of, why don't I go out and buy brand new buses? Why don't I build the tennis court? Why don't I build the basketball court? Had the board decided to do these things, some people in this district would have been under criminal investigation and charged with fraud, felony, misappropriation of public funds. And I don't care who likes it that I said that and who does not, because it's a fact. Now, I'm going to say this. I have waited 3 and 4 meetings for an MOU that could affect what it looks like when our kids finally come back to school. Does anyone have any idea when someone can finally deliver MOUs that will tell us what the current cost extras are going to be to our budget for putting someone in back in the classroom? And the answer is obviously I don't know, or it would have been on the agenda. It was supposed to be on the agenda. So whoever is looking at that, look at our budget and ask yourself, do you need something that I can't give you right now? I want to go back to the fantasy of this whole thing. All this mess started in about 1999 when Richard Riordan backed Caprice Young to sit on the school board for Los Angeles Unified. If you trace most of these charters back, they go back to that time frame. So there was rapid expansion of school building. Our own Max, who lives in town, I won't embarrass him by saying his last name, was a project manager. All of his schools were DSA approved. But anyway, a bunch of these charters were approved. Then through political climate, Miss Young was not on the board anymore. And so these people were looking for places to go. And at some point, Miss Young herself sat out in the audience and came out here as a consultant and sold us a starter kit on how to sponsor some of these charters that go back to her days on the school board. So if you look in the records, we paid her $6,000 to show us how to do this. About the same time, LACO was telling us, you are in a Figma report, meaning that you are in negative certification. So I sat out in the audience and watched this, and the district took up charter revenue as a means of getting us by for the next 6 or 7 years, whatever that was. And we did good there for that. We really did. But these fluctuations you see, if you know the district's business and you know the district staffing, you started seeing fluctuations when a superintendent left. You started seeing people serving as consultants that were superintendents and former employees negotiating with us on the way out while they were moving their attendance on their charter that they developed off the back of this district over to Capitol and ultimately to Apple Valley. Easy to find. Then came the day of 4/27/17. Pull up the movie, people. I had Justin Schmidt standing up there. I refused to vote. I wouldn't even give him a no vote. I said, look, you're not giving me the information I need here. Well, the information did come out, and it came out through the DA. So I did not disgrace myself by even honoring these people with a vote. And if you watch that movie, again, like I said last week, I'm not psychic and I can't tell you the horse races, but any idiot could see this coming. Now somebody is sitting in Australia running around hiding from the federal authorities with $50 million of that kid in San Bernardino's money. And we're left holding the bag. There's been a false economy created here. And this board is not the brunt of it. And the only reason that we're not in negative certification right now is this board and the people in the school district that run the finances have been very, very conservative. We are going to, you can bet that the DA is going to look at this board meeting tonight because they are about to meter down what they're going to do to us from the court. So I thank you, Mr. Justin Schmidt, and all your friends that stood up here, and I thank the board members who were there that night, who are no longer on this board, who sat there and scathed me in that movie. Thank you. Staff, please do everything you can to reach out to LACO, because we're in the exact same position we were in 2013 when LACO issued a Figma report. The only thing that we have done is built personal wealth for some individuals who are under criminal indictment or felon, whatever you call them, people that drift and run away. Now the last thing I'm going to say is this. 1505, the Charter 1505 piece, Assembly Bill 1505 allows board members, when charters come to us now, to say, hey, we want to renew, we want to do this or that. You can, for the only reason, is tell those charters, you are affecting the district financially. And so we're not going to approve you. So we can flop from going, hey, as long as I don't know the kid, as long as I got 30% of my budget being subsidized, I don't care. But now all of a sudden, when you're standing in front of me and you've produced a system that works and you're producing outcomes and the kids in your community decide to choose to go there, don't expect me to flip-flop over a dollar. We put ourselves here, and I'm not going to betray the children in this community the choice where they go. They can choose to come to our school every day, and hopefully we'll get good enough to make sure that they do. That's enough for me. I've said a lot of incendiary things that are insulting and not representative of a good board member. I should resign right now because I told y'all this would happen before, and it is happening. So that said, I will shut my mouth and go back through the board. Anybody got anything they want to say? Okay, guys, thank you for each of your expertise. This is I believe, the last meeting that I may open the next meeting as the president, but I will not be president of this board again, so take that for what it's worth. Some people may be confused. When I call for a vote, I always say, I announce the board's vote and then my vote, and some people may not understand that, but what I try to do is show the public that the consensus of the board is this or that, and that the board president's vote really doesn't mean that much in the end. It's just one vote. And I've really focused on the work that the rest of the board members do. They each bring a specific expertise to the table. And they include literally a rocket scientist, an educator, and people that have served the public, graduated from our school and stuff. So I will say this. This sounds to be like doom and gloom, but I'm not running again, but I will remind you of something. When I ran for the board, I had 3 campaign promises. Get the book, look it up. It said, number 1, I wanted to reduce fiscal dependence on out-of-boundary charters. I wonder why I wanted to do that. Well, now you know the answer. The second one was restore focus on local students. That sounds like we needed to do that too. And finally, restore the good name of the district in the greater educational marketplace. So back then, people were suing us. You couldn't open up any career things with other districts because they didn't want to be associated with us. I want to tell you that the things that we're thinking about having to do right now to fix those things have already been done. Tracy Costan spoke to us tonight, but she's been wearing herself out with that newspaper trying to highlight our staff, our students, and our schools, and has done a wonderful job doing that. But Tracy's not the impetus for that, just because she has the power of the pen. It's the people that she's featuring that make the difference. The community participating in things like the strategic plan, the gold standard, the things that we're measuring ourselves to. You remember Mr. King started off his presentation this evening with, where does this fit into the gold standard? Why are we talking about this? So this district has become very measurable in its performances and how it's reported out. That ties back to the LCAP. I want to talk a little bit about the schools, the site groups, the site councils, the PTO people. They've been highly engaged. They're doing everything they can to attract students and to talk about, very frankly, with staff members about what the expectations are, some of the community's concerns, how to celebrate what the community finds the district doing successful. And then, again, the strategic plan, the gold standard. These are all things, and a conservative spending approach. So this isn't something that we've seen, but the days of mono presidencies and staff that are spending a couple years here to build up their own income level, and those are far gone. And I am very proud of the work that the board has done. It is now my role as the president to say, I think the consensus of this board, at least the other 4 members, if I'm hearing them correctly, is that the superintendent takes the reserves that we've built, looks at the different programs, and makes recommendations to us that get us to the numbers as quickly as possible. Is that accurate, board? Does anyone have an issue with me with the way I've characterized that? You're expecting Mr. King to bring back a balanced budget.
That's accurate.
Okay. The thing I will add as the president, I don't think we need to start diving into the bushes about this and that. I don't see us hiring people immediately, especially at the top end here. I think we need to be as conservative as we have been. I went on a rant before, and I'm going to stay on that rant. If you need something right now from this district and it's an MOU, let's get that wrapped up and let's get it up here so we know what our costs are. But I think LACO is there to help us. LACO has been, last thing I'm going to say about this, Lakeland has been sitting back and watching us fund ourselves, this district fund ourselves since 2013. They know what's happened. And so it is their obligation as the overseer, just like it is with us as overseers of charters. If we know they're doing something wrong, it's our obligation. And I think some of the number fluctuations you saw in the charters was from this board asking real questions about the charters. Do you do this? Do you do that? And I think that has also been a successful process. But that said, I think we need to make general recommendations about where the money comes from. LACO will use their team to analyze it and make some suggestions about where those things come. And then we can go into it measurably with the support of the oversight agency rather than doing back a paper napkin, lick your pencil calculations that they're going to come back and say that they don't like anyway. Larry, I applaud, I think on behalf of the board, I applaud the conservative nature that Lynn has had, you working with her, and also the work you've done to promote our schools in the community. And with that said, I think we're done with this item. Okay, my comments are this on the hiring of this consultant. Was it your intention to eliminate the chief business officer position any time during this fiscal year?
No.
So therefore, had Lynn chose to stay, her contract would have been up for review at the end of the fiscal year, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the district would have been obligated to pay that salary to the end of the fiscal year, is that correct?
Correct.
Does LACO have expectations that you will make typical reports that require the expertise of someone like Ms. David?
Correct.
Have any of Ms. David's reports ever been kicked back with substantial errors?
They have not.
Wonderful. Ms. David, again, I would just tell you, I would sink your referral so quickly to keep you here, but good luck in where you're going. I saw the scope of services. I hope the public will look over the scope of services. Does this person have any contact with the district in the past?
No, she does not.
Does this person understand the dire circumstances that they're walking into?
Yes, she does.
Yeah, this is not just filling out and populating spreadsheets with the typical numbers. Does this person have the ability by the end of their period of service here to give you a summary of, an objective summary, a non-employee consultant summary of what they think the financial department looks like in its current practices?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good, I'd like to see that modified onto the scope of services then.
Okay.
Board, is there anything else? Wonderful. Call to question. Do I have a motion for adjournment at 8:32 p.m.? Board, thank you for the wonderful work you did this evening.